but that I did not need a span style to start like I had been doing. So I really needed to just pay attention within the divs. And so that was a good thing for me to learn and look at when they were closing. And I realized that I was forgetting the font style to start the code. So there were things that I hadn't remembered. So I then decided on each of these goals you can see here to put blue in. And so I had finally gotten the Ledger font back, which took a long time for me, but I had got it back. And then I decided to put the blue in just to test myself to see how it would go. And so um, here I am. Actually, I don't know if that's right, so I'll just do it here. So when we click on the HTML, oh, I'm sorry, I need to cancel this. Sorry, I need to get my cursor down in the right spot. That's another thing I learned as I kept thinking my code was gone and having this panic moment. But we can see down here that I have my span for the whole thing, but then I have where my divs are, and I have a div style, and I had to recognize that this div style applied to my image, but then here I have a span style, and I put in navy, and then I end my span for just this section, because then I wanted the rest of it not navy. And then I put in another navy here, and these I coded all myself. I typed all that in. I wasn't copying code from another place. I was really practicing how to write code. And so I successfully made blue goals against the gray. And so I was very proud of that. Okay, so I want to show you now where I really feel like I've demonstrated some expertise, and I'm going to keep on this poetry page to do that. So the first is where I have coded the font and color as I explained above. The fact that I really hand coded this font and this color to show that I could do it. The second option is that I used the layout options of this page. It was a first step for me, but I had played around with the layout on the front so much that I came here and I decided just to right away really be playing with the spacing underneath. And so I did that, and I played around, and you can see here with the div and the spacing as well. So this was another way where I applied what I learned on that first page to here with the spacing and making the goals line up against the picture and have one space in between. And that, again, may seem simple, but it wasn't for me. And third and lastly, I'm very excited about this, I made this box and I made these lines and I hand coded that all by myself. What I had decided is when I put two columns in, there was no break here. And so it wasn't very clear that these names here on the right were separate from this text in the middle, and I wanted to make a separation. So I looked up right from my CSS tutorials that I did the second 5 weeks, and I found about tabling. And so I went in let me go in here to edit page. And if I click here and I go into the HTML, I went in and I put in, here's the border width, the border style. I wanted the ridge to be kind of that depth. I thought that was kind of cool. And then over on the side. Now, when I first put it in, I put in the div style. And if you can see, the div ends down here. Well, guess where that little code was? That was up here, right after all of this. And so I ended up, in a funny way, with a box right here, and then all my names underneath. My names weren't in my box. So I went back into the code and I made sure I played with my div, made sure it was down at the bottom, and I put it in, and it was a box, and these lines weren't there. And I thought, well, I'd like to make it look kind of like a table. So then I put in this HR, horizontal rule, which I learned again from my tutorials that that meant. So I put all those in and clicked update and didn't know what was going to happen and was so excited when I saw my table. And this will be where all my students build a page from. I put Elma's in just as an example, but the others aren't linked yet. So that table is completely hand-coded by me, and I really am very proud of that. And those, therefore, are my areas of expertise. And certainly I'm not an expert, but I am proud of what I've been able to accomplish.